Breaking women's basketball news, Diana Taurasi, widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest women's basketball.
Breaking women's basketball news, Diana Taurasi, widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest women's basketball player of all time, has announced her retirement. She's the WNBA's all-time leading scorer. She won 3 championships with the Phoenix Mercury, where she spent her entire career. She was an 11-time All-Star, the future Hall of Famer, also named a 10 All-WNBA first team. She won 6 gold medals. Diana Taurasi, one of the most dominant players in WNBA history, has officially retired the basketball world is in shock, and Caitlin Clark has just reacted to the news in a way no one expected. Taurasi's legacy is undeniable, but with her departure, many are asking what's next for the WNBA. 20 seasons in the WNBA, the league's all-time leading scorer announcing her retirement. Going to tell us what is next. I'm so proud of you, incredibly proud of you. All I know is I'm done with basketball. This is a massive shift for women's basketball, and Caitlin Clark's response is already making headlines. Could this be the passing of the torch moment we've all been waiting for? And what does this mean for the league moving forward? Stick around. This is a story you don't want to miss. Diana is the greatest women's basketball player of the modern era. And when I say modern, I mean the last 40 years. Or what she has done is incomparable, especially when you look at the sum total of everything. Winning 3 national championships in college makes her one of the, if not the great. Diana Taurasi, one of the most decorated and legendary players in WNBA history, has officially announced her return, and the basketball world is shaken. Fans knew this day was coming, but no one expected it to happen so suddenly. Taurasi had always been a fierce competitor, someone who embodied toughness, leadership, and unmatched ability to take over games when it mattered most. But now, after 2 decades of dominance, she's calling it quits, and the entire WNBA is left wondering what happens next. As love playing with her, anyone who has ever played against her has pretty much hated it, because she's out there to win. She's going to talk trash as she loves to compete, and that's what it's always been about for Diana Taurasi. It's one of the things that makes her so fun to watch. And then, you know, Hannah, she's kind of like the women's basketball Charles Barkley, and she says things that are always funny, and and that she can get away with just a great personality to be around, and it's certainly know we're going to miss watching her play and covering her game. As soon as the news broke, reactions started flooding in from every corner of the basketball world, from her longtime teammates and coaches to the next generation of stars. She helped inspire everyone, had something to say about the end of an era, but one reaction stood out among the rest. Caitlin Clark, the young superstar who many believe is the future of the WNBA, had only one word to say about Taurasi's retirement. Legend. That single word carried a lot of weight, because in many ways Taurasi paved the way for players like Clark. She wasn't just a great player, she was a symbol of what women's basketball could be. Her confidence, her swagger, her ability to talk trash and back it up with clutch performances, it was all part of what made her one of the most electrifying players to ever step on a WNBA court. But here's where things get interesting. Diana Taurasi is retiring with a 0-4 record against Caitlin Clark. Let that sink in. For all the greatness, all the accolades, and all the championships, Taurasi never managed to beat Clark on the court, and now she never will. You know, we just talked about it. It's been such an amazing ride. I mean, we're talking about 3 consecutive national titles at UConn, 3 titles in the WNBA, 6 Olympic gold medals. What went into the decision that now was the time to step away? You know, I don't think it was one moment. I think it was I had to weed myself off, the game a little bit, and I think just the last couple years, I kept finding myself in different places. Not that I was working less hard or I wasn't just as focused on the season, but I think there was a time where, there was a point where I was ready. This feels like a true passing of the torch moment, whether Taurasi admits it or not. For years, Taurasi was the face of the WNBA, the player who embodied everything the league stood for. Now that spotlight is shining directly on Caitlin Clark. It's no secret that Taurasi had mixed feelings about Clark's rise. She made headlines last year when she downplayed Clark's impact, saying that rookies had to learn the hard way in the WNBA. She didn't exactly embrace Clark's arrival. In fact, she seemed a little annoyed by all the attention Clark was getting. And let's be real, the attitude wasn't surprising. Taurasi built her legacy by being the toughest player in the room, the one who never backed down from a challenge. She wasn't going to hand over the spotlight to Clark or anyone else without a fight, but reality has a funny way of forcing change, and now Taurasi is watching the game move on without her, led by the very player she once tried to downplay for Clark. This is just a beginning for Taurasi. This is a final chapter. Taurasi's retirement is undeniably one of the biggest stories in WNBA history, and it raises huge questions about the future of the league. For years, the WNBA has relied on toy star power to draw attention, to create rivalries, And to keep fans engaged now with her gone, the league is fully transitioning into a new era, one where players like Caitlin Clark, Giugu Watkins, and Angel Ree will be expected to carry the torch forward. And that's where things get really interesting, because while Toll Rose's legacy is cemented, there's no telling just how big Clark's impact will be. She's already breaking attendance records, TV ratings, and jersey sales. She's already drawn more attention to the WNBA than any other player in recent history, and now she doesn't have to share the spotlight with Taurasi anymore. This is her league now, and whether Taurasi likes it or not, the WNBA is changing in real time. But let's take a moment to appreciate just how incredible Taurasi's career really was. She holds records that may never be broken, including being the WNBA's all-time leading scorer with 10,646 points. She won 3 WNBA championships, 3 NCAA titles, and 6 Olympic gold medals. She played 20 seasons at the highest level, staying dominant well into her 40s, something very few players in any sport can claim. Her influence extends far beyond the court, too. She played a huge role in growing the WNBA, making it clear that women's basketball isn't just worth watching, it's worth celebrating. That's why even though Taurasi and Clark never had a real rivalry, Clark's reaction to her retirement says it all, because even the next generation of superstars knows Diana Taurasi wasn't just great, she was different. But here's the question everyone's asking: who's next now that Taurasi is gone? Does this mean we're about to see a major generational shift in the WNBA? Breanna Stewart is still playing at a high level, but she's in her 30s. How much longer does she have? Will Sue Bird ever make a return to coaching or broadcasting? Are we witnessing the complete changing of the guard? Women's basketball, one thing is clear: the WNBA is officially in a new era. The question now is what comes next for Caitlin Clark. This is a moment to take full control of the league, and judging by what we've seen so far, she's more than ready for the challenge. The era of Taurasi is over. The era of Clark is just beginning. And for the WBA, this is only the start of something even bigger. Diana Taurasi's retirement isn't just the end of an era, it's the beginning of a massive shift in the WNBA. The league is changing in real time, and Taurasi's decision to step away from the game makes one thing clear: the WNBA's next generation is officially taking over. But what does this actually mean? What happens to the league without its longtime face, and how does this impact players like Caitlin Clark, who are now stepping into biggest spotlight women's basketball has ever seen? One thing is certain: Taurasi didn't just retire quietly, she made sure to go out on her own terms with a move that surprised even her closest supporters. Most people assumed she'd announce it on The View, using the show's massive platform to deliver her final message. Instead, she went directly to Time magazine, breaking the story in a way that put her completely in control of the narrative. That's classic Taurasi, never letting anyone else dictate the terms of her career. But as much as this moment is about her, it's also about what's next, because with Taurasi gone, the WNBA is entering a completely new era, one where Caitlin Clark is the biggest name in the sport, and Clark's response to Taurasi's retirement, a single word: legend. It was short, it was simple, and it said everything that needed to be said. Clark respects Taurasi. She knows what Taurasi meant to the game, but at the same time, this is Clark's time now. There's no more debate about whether or not Clark is the face of the WNBA, because with Taurasi stepping away, there's no one left to challenge that reality. For years, the WNBA relied on veteran stars like Taurasi, Sue Bird, and Candace Parker to carry the league forward. Now that responsibility belongs to Caitlin Clark, Angel Ree, Giugu Watkins, and the next wave of young superstars, and the impact is already massive. Clark's rookie season in the WNBA has shattered every possible record for viewership, attendance, and merchandise sales. The league is more popular than ever, and it's all because Clark is the biggest draw in the sport right now. And here's where things get really interesting. Taurasi was always the ultimate competitor, the kind of player who didn't just want to beat her opponent, she wanted to embarrass him on the court. That's why it's so fitting that she's retiring with a 0-4 record against Caitlin Clark. For all her greatness, for all her talk about Clark having to learn the hard way in the WNBA, she never actually managed to beat her on the court, and now she never will. It's almost poetic in a way. Taurasi's entire career was built on being the best, staying at the top and never backing down from a challenge. But the game caught up to her. Players like Clark brought in a new level of skill, shooting, and court vision that even Taurasi, one of the greatest of all time, couldn't keep up with anymore. And deep down, she knew it. That's why when she was asked about Clark and the new generation of players taking over, she admitted something important: records are meant to be broken. She knows her all-time scoring record won't stand forever. She knows someone is coming to surpass everything she's done, and right now, that someone looks like Caitlin Clark. The numbers back it up. Taurasi finished her career with 10,646 points, making her the WNBA's all-time leading scorer. Clark, if she stays on her current pace, she'll shatter that number within the next decade. Taurasi won championships, MVPs, and Olympic gold medals, but Clark is already rewriting the record books in her very first season. This isn't just the end of Taurasi's career, it's the beginning of a new chapter in WNBA history, and now the league has to fully embrace this new generation. For years, the WNBA has struggled to capture mainstream attention the way the NBA does, but with players like Clark Ree and Watkins stepping into the spotlight, the league is now seeing unprecedented growth. The real question is, can they sustain it? Losing a player like Taurasi is both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge filling the void left by one of the greatest players of all time, the opportunity letting the new generation fully take over and elevate the league to new heights. And if the early signs are any indication, the WNBA is in very good hands. Clark is already the most recognizable player in the league, and her impact is just getting started. She's not just a great scorer, she's a once-in-a-generation player who can completely change the course of a franchise. With Taurasi gone, Clark now has the full attention of the basketball world, and if the first few months of her professional career or anything to go by, she's going to take this opportunity and run with it. There's a new standard being set in the WNBA, and it's being driven by Clark's relentless pursuit of greatness. Taurasi was a legend, no one can deny that, but now it's Clark's turn to make history. This isn't just a transition, it's a full-scale takeover, and every player in the WNBA knows it, even Taurasi, because while she may have doubted Clark at first, she knows better than anyone what it takes to dominate the WNBA, and deep down she sees the same fire in Clark that made her so unstoppable for the past 2 decades. Clark isn't here to just be another good player, she's here to rewrite history, break records, and take women's basketball to places it has never been before. And now that Taurasi is officially out